Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live today, Monday, April 11th. Today, we'll be talking about very important topics. But before we begin, I want to introduce myself as I am not the one who usually does the lives in English. So before we begin, my name is David Cantu. I want to thank you all for joining. And before we get started, if you can kindly tell me in the chat, whether it is through our Facebook Live or through our YouTube Live, which we are both in, we're live in both. Tell me where you're joining from. If you are a parent or a student, and if you are a parent, please let me know what grade your student is in, or if your students are on, if you have multiple students. And that will give me a better chance of getting to know you all before we start. I like to make our lives more interactive. So before we begin again, let me know where you are joining from. And if you are a parent of a student, or if you are a student, and if you are a parent, please let me know what grade your students are in. And if you're a student, you can also let me know what grade you are in, okay? Today, we will be talking about this very important topic, the 3 mistakes you need to avoid. We got this idea for this live from one of our posts that we actually shared in our social media. It was a short, a reel, or a TikTok, whichever platform you follow us on. And that video got almost 500,000 views. So we wanted to make a longer live, a longer discussion of those topics. And again, if you do not follow us in this social media platforms, I'm going to share with you the links of our social media. Best College Shade USA is the name of our Instagram account, TikTok account. And if you are on YouTube or Facebook, don't forget to like our page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, I'm going to start in about 5 minutes, depending on how many people join and depending on how many questions I get asked and how many introductions I receive from you guys. If you know any parent or any other student that wants to learn more about the college admissions process and how to maximize aid and scholarship, please do share these accounts with any other parent, any other student that needs to hear this information, as it is free and it is full of value. And again, we are live. Here's our weekly schedule for our lives. We're live on Mondays and Tuesdays. We are live in Spanish through our Spanish accounts. But today, 3 o'clock Monday, we'll be live on Facebook and YouTube. And we'll be live tomorrow on Tuesday at 3 p.m. on Instagram and TikTok. So make sure you follow us and let us know again where you are joining from before we begin. Again, my name is David Cantu. I'm one of the co-founders of Best College Shade. Best College Shade, if you didn't know, is the leading online college planning platform in the US. We've helped hundreds of students and parents navigate the college admissions process through a step-by-step online course and digital products. So if you are already a member of Best College Shade, please also let me know if you're already a member. Let's see if there's anyone in the chat. I see that we have Vidal in the chat. Hi, Vidal. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Again, if you are joining and if this is your first time, please let me know where you are joining from. And if you are a parent or a student, in high school, okay? I know that most parents who watch this, or most people who watch this, are parents, since students are supposed to be in school, and there's no such thing, in the majority of states, there's no such thing as online school or virtual school. Now it's back to in-person classes. Things are finally getting back to normal, and I'm glad that that is happening. Everything seems to be going back to normal. Again, there was one thing I read this week about the SAT score and the standardized test scores being, now I don't know if you are familiar with this, but a lot of schools were test optional after the COVID. Well, MIT, now they made mandatory the SATs and SAT scores again. So things are going back to normal. I'll be talking more about that in the next couple of slides. Again, I will be talking about the 3 mistakes you need to avoid. These mistakes are some that I see all the time that parents make. A lot of emails that I get, a lot of comments that we get on social media have to do with the following topics that we'll be discussing. And if you are a parent and if your students are college bound, if you have students that are going to college, you cannot afford to make these mistakes, okay? Some of them have irreversible financial consequences, not only to your students, but also to you. There's a lot of parents who take Parent Plus loans, and there's a lot of co-signing that goes on where the student has to ask the parent for a co-signer for a loan. And a lot of parents think that this is a student's problem, where in fact it is a family problem. And it doesn't have to be a problem. That's why you need to look for help and do a step-by-step process like the one we teach inside Best College Aid, so that college planning and the applying to college is not a problem, so that it's not super confusing. Again, if you follow all of our tips and steps, everything will be much, much easier. Okay. Why don't we get started with the live uh, and help teach you what, or help you avoid these mistakes. Okay. Let's see. Now, the first uh, tip or mistake that you must avoid is that you must not think that test optional is an option. All right. I talked about this before we started this presentation, but a college application must include all these and more. So the college essay, some colleges might actually ask for a supplemental questions, and you have to submit these as well, even if they're optional. The supplemental questions I'm referring to, a lot of colleges will also ask for recommendation letters. The majority will ask for 2. There's some colleges that will only ask for 1, and some of them might not ask for any, but the majority will ask for a recommendation letter. And when it comes to test scores, SAT and ACT scores, a lot of parents think that just because a school is test optional, the student does not have to submit these scores, where in fact, it's been shown, studies have shown that the majority of students who get accepted to prestigious universities, top tier colleges, Ivy League, Stanford's, all those type of colleges, they submit an SAT or ACT score, especially in 2021 and in 2020, where it was said that it was test optional. Well, a lot of the students who ended up getting accepted had a higher percentage or a higher odds of getting accepted because they submitted these scores. And again, test optional is not optional. MIT, they're getting rid of the test optional policy. It's back to normal, back to how it used to be before the pandemic. And in my personal experience, for example, even before COVID, when I graduated high school in 2015, my school didn't make it mandatory for students to submit the SAT or ACT scores. So there's still strategies for students who don't really perform well in tests, and sometimes it's best not to submit your scores. And that's something that we go in more depth inside Best College Aid. But for those of you who want to go to big schools like Harvard, or not just big schools, but really prestigious schools, top tier schools, flagship schools, you have to submit your scores. You have to take the SAT and ACT at least once, and then focus on that, the one that you do the best at, so that you can get a score that is required or that they used to accept students the year before you. Okay, that's one mistake that a lot of parents make and a lot of students make. They say, hey, mom, dad, I don't need to take the SAT. This school doesn't really require it. And then their odds of acceptance drastically goes down if they don't take the test. And another thing is that they can give up or they leave money on the table, because a lot of scholarships, institutional scholarships, private scholarships, state scholarships will require an SAT or ACT score. And if you don't take these tests and if you don't submit your scores, then you're going to not be eligible for these scholarships. Okay, so that's one mistake that you must avoid to maximize your odds of winning scholarships. Okay, and getting accepted to college, because if you get accepted, then you win the scholarship. That's usually how it works. Half of the battle is getting accepted, the other half is paying for college. That's what I tell my students. But anyways, that's one mistake you must avoid. The second mistake is not demonstrating interest. Okay, what do I mean by demonstrating interest, and what are some examples of demonstrating interest? Okay, so a college will be more likely to accept a student who wants to go there, right? That makes a lot of sense. Think about it. Students who apply to, for example, the University of Florida, they apply, I don't know if it's 20, 30,000 students who apply to big state schools like that. And only a handful or a small percentage of the students who apply end up getting in. What's the difference between those who get in and those who don't get in? Well, for a lot of schools, demonstrating interest is one aspect that will help them maximize their odds of getting accepted. And this is one of the mistakes that a lot of parents make, where they just don't visit the school. They don't necessarily meet with the specific person that is in charge of perhaps getting to know the students, so the admissions representatives. And if you don't do all these things to demonstrate interest, then your odds of getting in will drastically decrease as well. In my example, for when I was in high school, there was a regional representative for my school, Marist College, where I ended up attending. And I met with this person. I went to an accepted student dinners. And then when I appealed my financial aid package, he helped me get more aid for school. And that's something that a lot of students do not do. They don't meet with the college regional admissions officers, and then they leave. Again, it could be money on the table, or it could be the acceptance letter that they didn't get, right? And qualified students who don't demonstrate interest typically don't get into universities, right? So I know one example is the University of Florida. In my case, I got accepted into but I didn't get accepted into UF. And I actually exchanged a couple of emails with a representative from I had an interview with a student that went to because some schools will ask for interviews. And if you do the interview and if it goes well, again, that's demonstrating interest. There's two types of interviews. I won't go into detail with those type of interviews, but that's one example of demonstrating interest. I was also a swimmer in college, and I went on a recruiting trip, an official recruiting trip. That's demonstrating interest. One of our students wants to do theater. He wanted to visit the school and met with the director of the theater program. That's demonstrating interest. So again, the second mistake that a lot of parents make and students is not demonstrating interest, okay? And remember, a college will be more likely to accept a student who wants to go there, and who wants to, rather a student who demonstrate interest throughout high school, that meets with the representatives, that goes on official visits, that perhaps if he's an athlete, goes on recruiting trips, if he's in some other type of activity, meets with the director of the college's program. So that's one example, or a couple of examples of a mistake that a lot of students make. Again, the first mistake that students make, for those of you who just joined, is that thinking that test optional schools are making it optional for you to send your school. They're not. You have to submit it, and test optional is not an option, right? That's the first tip. The second tip, or the second mistake you must avoid, is not demonstrating interest. You have to demonstrate interest. And the last mistake you should avoid is not applying to local scholarships. You should apply to local scholarships. And here's what a lot of people and a lot of parents do when they want their students to apply to big national scholarships like the Coca-Cola Foundation, MasterCard, McDonald's. And there's a lot of applicants who will apply to these scholarships. And in a lot of cases, they don't accept a lot of the people who apply. So what I recommend my students is to look for local scholarships, right? Not there. Local scholarships have fewer applicants, and this increases your odds of winning scholarships. You should use online search engines and ask your high school counselor to help you find local scholarships. And inside Best College Aid, we do go over how to look for these scholarships. I actually posted one clip from last week's live where I show you how you can create an account to look for scholarships. And again, following or avoiding these mistakes was something that helped my siblings and I. There's me at graduation with my 3 siblings and my 2 parents, helped us get accepted to college with over $500,000 in aid and scholarships. I got a full ride from Marist College. My sister Laura also got a full ride at Marist College. Francisco went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And if you add up all of our financial aid packages and scholarships, we ended up getting over $600,000 in aid and scholarships. And now we teach that to students, okay? I see that Dan also has a question. What should I consider when creating a list of colleges? Thank you for your question, Dan. You should consider the size of the school, how far it is from home, whether it is public or private. If you want to stay in-state, remember that if you're in-state, you will get in-state tuition, and that could be lower. But there's also a lot of private schools that charge out-of-state tuition to everyone that are fairly generous. So this depends on what you want, and you have to look at every school, create a list of 8 to 12 universities, and look at what the pros and cons of going to each of them is. or are rather. So that's something that you have to do on a school by school basis. All right. Great question. And thank you for asking. And if you guys have any other questions, please let me know. We are live for the next couple of minutes. Again, if you want to follow us on social media, because we will be live again tomorrow, it's Best College Aid USA on Instagram and TikTok, so that you do not miss those lives and all the content that we post inside Best College Aid. My name is David Cantu. Thank you for joining. I will see you tomorrow, whether it is on TikTok or Instagram, or I will see you next week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel